NOLA Bible Stories.
Hi guys, this is the story of Esther, a brave young woman whom God used to save her people. Her story can be found in the Bible, in the book of Esther, chapters 1 through 10 in the Old Testament. It is a story of courage, faith, and how God works behind the scenes to bring about His plans, even when His name is not mentioned directly. Let's journey together to Persia many years ago and see how Esther became a queen and how her courage changed history. Long ago, in the powerful empire of Persia, there was a mighty king named Ahasuerus, also called Xerxes. He ruled over 127 provinces, stretching from India to Ethiopia. His palace was filled with splendor, gold, and riches. But the king was not always wise. One day, after a great feast, the king called for his queen, Vashti, to come before his guests. But Queen Vashti refused to appear. The king was furious. Advisors told him that if the queen could disobey, then all wives might disobey their husbands too. So King Xerxes removed Vashti as queen. Soon, a search began for a new queen, someone beautiful, graceful, and worthy to wear the crown of Persia. In the city of Susa lived a young Jewish woman named Hadassah, known also by her Persian name, Esther. She was raised by her cousin Mordecai because her parents had died. Esther was kind, wise, and very beautiful. When the king's search reached Susa, Esther was taken to the palace along with many other young women. For a whole year, they were given perfumes, oils, and fine clothing to prepare for the king. When Esther's turn came to meet the king Xerxes, she didn't demand anything special. She simply trusted God and followed wise advice. The king was immediately drawn to her beauty and her humble spirit. He placed the royal crown upon her head and declared her the new queen of Persia. But Esther kept a secret. She was a Jew, part of God's chosen people. Mordecai had warned her not to reveal her background, and she obeyed. Outside the palace gates, Mordecai remained close to Esther. One day, he overheard two guards plotting to kill the king. Mordecai told Esther, and she reported it to Xerxes, giving Mordecai the credit. The plot was stopped, and the event was written down in the royal record book. But trouble was brewing. There was a man named Haman, a high official in the king's court. He was proud and demanded that everyone bow down before him. But Mordecai refused. He would not bow to any man, only to God. Haman was enraged. Learning that Mordecai was a Jew, Haman decided to destroy not only Mordecai, but all the Jewish people in the empire. He convinced King Xerxes with lies, saying the Jews had strange laws and did not obey the king. The king agreed and gave Haman his royal seal to issue a decree. Letters were sent to every province. On a certain day, all Jews, young and old, men, women, and children, were to be killed and their goods taken. The city of Susa was thrown into confusion, but Haman celebrated, confident in his evil plan. When Mordecai heard of the decree, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and wept bitterly at the gate. Esther's servants told her, and she sent clothes to comfort him, but he refused them. Through messengers, Mordecai explained the terrible plan to Esther. He urged her to go before the king and plead for her people. But Esther was afraid. She said, "Everyone knows that if I go to the king without being summoned, I could be killed, unless he holds out his golden scepter. But Mordecai replied with powerful words. Do not think that because you are in the palace, you will escape. If you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Esther's heart trembled, but she made a choice. She told Mordecai, Go, gather all the Jews in Susa, fast for me for 3 days, do not eat or drink. I and my servants will do the same. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. Esther was ready to risk her life for her people. After 3 days of fasting and prayer, Esther dressed in her royal robes. With a deep breath, she walked into the inner court of the king's palace. The king sat on his throne. Would he welcome her or order her death? The king looked up, saw Esther, and smiled. He held out his golden scepter. Esther was safe. What is it, Queen Esther? He asked. Even up to half the kingdom, it shall be given to you. But Esther didn't rush. Instead, she invited the king and Haman to a special banquet she had prepared. At the banquet, the king asked again, What is your request? Esther replied, Come again tomorrow to another banquet, and then I will answer. Haman left the palace that day, proud of being invited to dine with the queen. But when he saw Mordecai at the gate, still refusing to bow, his pride turned to rage. Haman's wife and friends advised him, Build a tall gallows, and in the morning ask the king to hang Mordecai upon it. Haman liked the idea and ordered it built. That very night, the king could not sleep. He ordered the royal records to be read to him. The servant read the account of how Mordecai had once saved the king from an assassination plot. Was anything done for this man? Asked the king. Nothing, the servant replied. Just then, Haman entered the court to request Mordecai's death. But before he could speak, the king asked, What should be done for the man the king delights to honor? Haman, thinking the king meant him, said, Dress him in royal robes, place him on the king's horse, and have a noble prince lead him through the city, shouting, This is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. Excellent, said the king. Go at once. Do all this for Mordecai the Jew. Haman's heart sank, but he had no choice. He led Mordecai through the streets, praising him. When it was over, Haman hurried home in shame. That evening, at the second banquet, the king again asked Esther, What is your petition? It shall be granted you. With courage, Esther spoke, O king, if I have found favor, let my life and the lives of my people be spared, for we have been sold to destruction and death. The king's face grew dark. Who is he? Where is the man who has dared to do such a thing? Esther pointed to Haman. This wicked enemy is Haman. The king was furious. He stormed out to the garden in rage. Haman, trembling for fear, fell upon Esther's couch to beg for his life. At that moment, the king returned and saw Haman's actions. Will he even assault the queen in my presence? The king roared. One of the servants said, Behold, a gallows stands at Haman's house, 50 cubits high, which he made for Mordecai. Hang him on it, commanded the king. And so Haman was executed on the very gallows he had built for Mordecai. The king gave Haman's estate to Esther, and Mordecai was promoted to the highest position under the king. But the decree to destroy the Jews could not be undone. So Esther fell once more before the king, weeping for her people. the king gave her permission to write another decree in his name. Mordecai wrote letters allowing the Jews to defend themselves on the appointed day. When that day came, the Jews triumphed over their enemies. Their sorrow turned to joy, their mourning into celebration. To this day, the Jewish people remember this deliverance with a joyful festival called Purim. And so, through the courage of Queen Esther and the faithfulness of Mordecai, God's people were saved. This story reminds us that God places people in certain positions for His purposes. Just like Esther, sometimes we face moments of fear where we must decide whether to stay silent or to speak with courage.
Mordecai's words still echo through history. Who knows but that you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? We may not wear royal crowns, but we each have moments where we can choose courage, faith, and obedience to God. The story of Esther shows us that even when God's name is not mentioned, His hand is always at work, guiding, protecting, and fulfilling His promises. This was the story of Queen Esther, found in the Old Testament in the book of Esther, chapters 1 through 10. May her courage inspire you to trust God in your own life, for who knows if you are here for such a time as this. Don't forget to like, subscribe for new videos every week, and share this video with your friends. See you next week.